As you know, I open the meeting with a chairman's statement, so I'm going to start to do that first. Can I welcome all members and officers to this meeting of the Development Control Committee, which is held and convened as a hybrid meeting. The meeting will be recorded and will be available on the Council's website as soon as is practical following the meeting. Everyone participating in this meeting will be accessing this meeting from either the Council chamber or remote locations. Please could everybody ensure that their mobile phones are switched off or on silent mode, please. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda and will ask officers to present a summary of the key points for the record. The agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their microphones on at that point. At any other time, attendees should keep their microphones off. Please, would all these members attend remotely keep their cameras on for the duration of the meeting, please. If any member or officers wish to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the top right-hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I will come to you in order I receive requests. Please lower your hands once you finish speaking. The chat button will be disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphones until I invite you to do so. Officers of Democratic Services will be supporting this meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary, they will mute those not being used. I will also ask that officers introduce themselves, as I will invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. They should also ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use. I will now go to the business. Okay, apologies for absence, please. Have I got any? Have we got any, Mike, please? None for me, no. No, I only had them for the site meeting yesterday, so none has been given to me for today. And Jonathan? Anybody? No? Oh, pardon?
Councillor John is...
Oh, yeah, and I don't know if... Is Councillor Barrow here? If Councillor Barrow's not here, can he give his apologies because he's in hospital?
That was the apology he's going to give, Chair, was Councillor Barrow.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Okay, any declarations of interest, please? Can you show hands? Your hands on your, yeah. Okay, all right, we'll do it that way then.
Yes,
Councillor Collins?
Item regarding the site for discussion. Pecuniary interest as a member of Maesteg Town Council, but I take no part in planning at the Town Council.
Thank you for that. And I can't see anybody raising their hands either, so that's done. Okay, site visit. The next site visit will for Wednesday, the 21st of 2nd, 24, for proposed site inspections. Can somebody formally move and second that, please, for noting? Thank you. Somebody second it, please. Thank you. Okay, approval of the minutes of the 30th of the 11th, 23. Can somebody formally move that and second it, please? Can you use your microphone, please? It's okay. Right, can we go through that again? Can somebody formally move the minutes, please?
Move.
Somebody second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, number 5, there's no public speakers. Number 6, you've all seen a copy of the amendment sheet, I take it? Yes? Okay, thank you for that. Number 7, Development Control Committee guidance, that's just for noting. Okay, number 8 is P138008 out. And Rodri's taken this. Please, Rodri.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. For the purposes of the recording, my name is Roger Davis, Development and Building Control Manager at BCBC. As outlined in the report and explained at the site visit yesterday, this planning application was originally submitted in November 2013 by Pontardawe Coal and Metals Company Limited, who acquired the majority of the site in early 2012. The land was previously occupied by general industrial uses, which ceased operating in 2008. The site was subsequently cleared of the former factory buildings. The original application was made in outline with all matters reserved for future approval and for comprehensive mixed-use development to include for dwellings, residential care home, public house, fast food restaurant, retail and industrial units. In 2014, the DC committee at the time resolved to approve the scheme subject to a Section 106 legal agreement. However, there were major issues with the viability of the scheme and modifications were made, including the omission of the care home and an increase in the number of residential units and open space within the site, which were then re-reported to and approved at another DC committee meeting in 2016. The scheme has been updated with all matters apart from access to be reserved for future approval. It now incorporates up to 201 residential units, including 15% as affordable housing, an employment/enterprise hub, retail units, public open space and other associated works as itemised in my report. The site is 7.65 hectares in total and approximately 5 hectares of which is in the applicant's ownership, with the remainder being in the freehold ownership of BCBC. The development will reserve land for future transport interchange to the north of the site, and it has been awarded grant funding by the Cardiff Capital Region to tackle several major infrastructure and remediation works, such as diverting a historic mining drain and the backfilling of several shafts, which are necessary to unlock the site and enable development. Very robust technical studies have been prepared that carefully consider the level of flood risk at the site, the consequences of flooding on and off site, and mitigation measures to address those risks and consequences. The phasing of the development has been carefully considered with regard to the site enabling and flood works, which will be required in the first instance to be undertaken as part of the funding process. In terms of the questions raised at yesterday's site visit, I can confirm that £3.5 million worth of CCR funding has been secured to fund the delivery of infrastructure and remediation works. The proposed remediation and infrastructure works primarily consist of the construction of new vehicle access points, the construction of an active travel route to the front of the site, the diversion of various existing sewers, including historic mining adit, the construction of new surface water and foul drainage infrastructure, the construction of a flood conveyance channel and storage area, general site clearance, the capping of the site with inert material where required, remediation of other mine workings on the site, new utilities infrastructure within the extent of the enabling works, and the rerouting or complete disconnection of utilities. The package would result in effectively an oven-ready site where a developer could proceed to submit reserve matters, applications, and then proceed to develop the site. BCBC and its partner landowner are in the process of working towards appointing a contractor to be on site before the summer. The enabling works phase is expected to take around 6 months to complete. The site will be actively marketed thereafter, with a view to entering into a conditional contract with a successful developer before this autumn. It is expected that house building will take place as soon as practicable following completion of the sale and reserve matters approval. The sale contract will include provisions to ensure that the developer delivers on the housing in a timely manner, in line with the main objectives of the grant funding, which are essentially to unlock stalled sites such as this for housing. The amount of the grant has been informed by the thorough analysis of costs consultants to ensure that the amount is sufficient to cover the extent of the preparatory works. Without the CCR grant funds, the site would not be viable and would likely stay stalled, vacant and derelict for even longer than it has already. The enterprise hub element of the site will be transferred to the council, and BCBC will progress a reserve matters application on that part of the site. The land earmarked for future transport interchange will also be transferred to BCBC as part of the agreed joint venture, and BCBC will progress a detailed application for that element in due course when further grant funding has been secured. Members will also note the late comments received from NRW regarding the latest flood modelling and flood consequences assessment report. And as advised in the amendment sheet, which you all hopefully had last night, a condition is proposed to be added to the recommendation to ensure that an updated modelling report and FCA are submitted for consideration before the flood mitigation works are carried out on site. It is expected that the updated reports will satisfy NRW's final questions and queries. In fact, the applicant's flood specialist's initial response to the late comments from NRW is that updated test results are potentially showing that the level of flood risk to the site could in fact be lower than that previously shown in the original FCA. In conclusion, members, the site is an extant mixed-use development application in the existing adopted local development plan, which will carry right through to the replacement LDP. It is a high-priority brownfield regeneration site that has significant potentials to stimulate economic growth within the main settlement of Maesteg, whilst at the same time addressing the industrial legacy of the site. The principle of the scheme is supported and the outline application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and a legal agreement, with detailed design matters such as appearance, landscaping, scale and layout to be finalised at a later date through the subsequent reserve matters applications. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that in-depth report. Has anybody got any questions they wish to ask on that report? I think a lot of things were thrashed out yesterday on the site visit, really. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Rodri mentioned about the 3.5 from CCR. Obviously, the development is predicated on this funding and the reparation of the site. But what if it's not enough money? That would be my first question. And I noticed in the report it mentioned about increasing the levels, the ground level. I don't know whether it's just in sort of certain areas or what. Is that part of the reparation as well? Or is that the developer's problem? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, firstly on the CCR funding, 3.5 million. Not just plucked out the air, it was actually quite detailed costs analysis of what was needed to remediate the site, enable the works, prepare the site for future development, and like I said, don't like using the term, but making it an oven-ready site for future development or developer to be interested in the site in the first instance and then put a bid in. So I think they've gone to the nth degree on finalising how much, and I wouldn't be surprised that even finalising that figure, they wouldn't have just said, yes, we only need that amount. I wouldn't be surprised that there will be some contingency in that just to make sure that there's enough funding in that CCR funding to cover those costs. And it's necessary. There are issues with the site, and that's why it hasn't come forward before now. And this CCR funding will be a real fillip for the scheme and make it a site that would be attractive to developers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Oh, hang on. Sorry.
The ground
Chair,
levels?
the ground levels. Yes, sorry. 600 mil for the residential development. That will be obviously part of the reserve matters for the developer coming in to develop the remainder of the site, but that has been factored into the FCA as a mitigation for that 1 in 1,000 year event to stop obviously the new properties from being flooded in the case of that event. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Can you, your hand is up, Nora. Your hand. Janine, the director wants to come in. Janine?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. If I may just add to some of the piece that Rodri has just spoken about. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Janine Nightingale. I'm the Corporate Director for Communities. So over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been working with CCR on this funding for this Awenny Road site. And the fund itself is to bring forward housing allocations that couldn't be brought forward by the market. So this Awenny Road site has stalled for numerous years because of all of the issues with the site, really. particularly for the mine working, the contamination, etc. So without this grant funding from CCR, we couldn't bring the site forward. So we were really grateful when the application was approved. But the one thing I would say, and you were right to raise it, Councillor Clark, is we have worked very, very hard with CCR to make sure these figures are correct, because of course, as you could imagine, BCBC is not in a position to add to that funding. So what we have done is we've done lots of different surveys, technical surveys, design work, to get to a figure that we're comfortable with, and then added a contingency on top of that. So we do think there is enough money in that 3.5. And of course, it'll be up to a tender process, won't it, as we are held to that when we go to the market. If it isn't enough, then what we will certainly be doing is going back to CCR and having that conversation with them, because there are schemes all across the 10 local authorities the CCR are working on, and some are not proceeding. So there is hopefully some funding there. We hope 3.5 isn't enough, but please be assured there's an awful lot of work has gone on behind the scenes there. And also there's grant conditions here, because as Rodri has talked about, we really do need to get out to the market if we get a decision from you today, to get that tender in place, to get that work commenced, because there is an end date on that grant. So we do need to start spending that money. We certainly don't want to lose it, because this site wouldn't go forward without it. No. So hopefully that's added a bit of reassurances for you. If we get to the point where the tenders come back and it's not enough, those discussions will be had straight away with our CCR colleagues. So I hope that's provided some assurance for you. Thank you.
Can we know the end date of the funding?
I think that we need to deliver, we're still negotiating that with CCR, because the end date was much shorter than the delivery timescale that we had originally envisaged, because of course it's taken us a while to get this application to you for planning committee, because of all of the issues that we had to unpick with natural resources, etc., the flood. So we are still negotiating that with them. They want us to have, I believe, 100 houses in place by sometime in 2026. So I think that's probably achievable. But what I will do is I will check that date, and I will write to the chair and give you that detail, and he can give it to you as a committee. Because please don't quote me on that date, because we've had so many conversations with CCR. So let me check what the latest agreement is. I think if we get a permission today and we're away, I think we're well within that agreement date that is set. But it's certainly there for a reason. They can't just hold this money over for us for a very long period of time. We have to get on with the works at the site, and rightly so, because it would be fantastic for our Llinvi Valley to get these beautiful new homes, to do something with this site, and to get some affordable homes, as well as all of the other wonderful things that are going on to this mixed-use development. So, yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Mark John, please.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things. I'm just wondering, Janine, would you not be the applicant, and now you're advising the committee on the decision? Would I be wrong in saying that?
Right.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
Jonathan will come in.
Yeah, Councillor John, yes, it's the director is here to advise on the issues surrounding the grant, the CCR grant funding. The director isn't actually advising on the planning merits of the proposal, and I need to remind members that we are today looking at the land use planning considerations for this proposal. We are not considering the CCR grant. It's relevant because it's an enabler for this development to go ahead. But you need to imagine this site in the context that there is no CCR funding. You just got to focus on the land use merits. And that's what you're here today to do. What the director has done is provided a background to that funding, because this was raised at the site visit yesterday, and we thought members needed to be given more information on that aspect. But at the site visit yesterday, I also mentioned that it is not a determining factor in this application. we are focusing on land use planning matters in this decision today. I don't know. Do you want to say anything else? Oh, for the purposes of the recording, my name is Jonathan Parsons, Group Manager for Planning and Development.
Did the Director wants to come back?
Yes, thank you for that, Councillor John. Yes, I am, as reiterated by John, I am here just to give comments on the grant funding in order to get this away. The decision on this planning and the planning matters are entirely at the discretion of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Councillor Pratt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Firstly, my apologies if this was brought up yesterday. I couldn't make the site visit, but I go to the amendment sheet about NRW considering whether a call-in is appropriate. This is the first time I would have heard of that, so it just sort of give me some background as to how can NRW very much just covering themselves just in case something goes wrong with the data, or is a call-in a serious thing? Is there something we really have to worry about if they do call it in? I've never heard of it. If I could get some explanation and whether I have to worry about it too much or not. Thank you, Chair.
Rodri, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Yes, it's not so much of a threat. It's an option available to statutory consultees such as Natural Resources Wales if they feel that they have major concerns with the scheme and they would like it to be considered by the Welsh Government rather than this committee. In this instance, that option is still available to them, and what we're working towards now with that condition is getting to a point where those couple of minor points that they've got issues with in terms of the flood consequence assessment and the modelling more than anything, and working with the applicants, specialists in that instance, who as I mentioned in the presentation have come back and said, well, they've reviewed it in the meantime since NRW's comments and feel that actually is probably a better situation than what they initially envisaged in terms of the FCA. So we don't imagine that there'll be any huge issues with this. It's just dotting a couple of I's, crossing a few T's, just to fully convince NRW that there won't be any issues with this development. But at the end of the day, it is up to us as a local planning authority, which NRW have advised us as well, to make the decision in terms of the consequences of flooding on that a particular development might have. So we haven't taken that lightly. We've gone into great depth in terms of what would be needed in terms of the flood mitigation works on this site, and we realise that there is an issue that needs to be resolved, and that's what we've gone ahead with. So hopefully, with that condition added on to the recommendation, slight changes to the modelling of that FCA and an updated report, we will reconsult with NRW, and effectively today, members, obviously it's not a decision won't be released after today because of the legal agreement will still have to be signed before the decision notice is issued. So in that intervening period, we're quite confident that we'll be able to resolve this matter finally, and before the decision is released. Thank you, Chair.
Okay for that, Councillor Pratt? Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Stephen Easterbrook, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sitting here a little confused, little uneasy feeling as well. I wasn't able to make that site meeting, and obviously these questions are not particularly about that. I've read the documentation, but I'm sitting here feeling pretty uneasy that we are talking about seeking planning permission for something that we as an authority are actually the applicant. And I've heard what has already been said, but I still do need to ask the question whether our corporate director is the applicant or is representing and representing the authority, or whether she is actually this morning popped up on the call, because we don't always see Janine on the DCC committee, whether she is actually an officer. So I've heard local members make declarations of interest, members who are part of Maesteg Town Council, but I am confused as to where we all sit today, and certainly the position of the corporate director. Thank you, Chair. I don't know if we have any legals in today that could actually answer.
Easterbrook, and I'm just going to get her now to answer your questions.
Absolutely. I would just like to feel sort of easy about it, but I'm certainly not feeling easy at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Jill?
Yes, Chair. Hello, I'm Gillian Dawson. I'm locum solicitor planning to the council. Councillor Stephen Easterbrook, hello. I understand your question. This site has got two owners, one of which is the council. We own part of the site. The other part of the site, the bulk of it, is owned by a third party, i.e. nothing to do with the council. And that other party is the applicant.
Yes.
And when it comes to the legal agreement, so we are not an applicant. We are here determining the application by the third party as the local planning authority. And when it comes to the legal agreements to secure the mitigation, the affordable housing, traffic regulation order contribution, as the local planning authority and also as landowner, we cannot enforce any obligations against ourselves. So when ultimately the developer is decided and the land transferred, they will have to sign up to the obligations to mitigate the development. So the council is not the applicant, to answer your question in short.
The director wants to come back in. Simon, I will come to you now. But the director, do you want to answer that?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor, for your question. With regard to my role here in Bridgend, you know I'm a corporate director, so I have a responsibility for 6 different areas, including planning, regeneration, economic development, highways, waste and corporate landlord. So I'm a director with the responsibility for all of those areas. So as part of that, I do come to this Development Control Committee. I'm sitting in the chamber today when there are major applications, and this is a major application, so I'm here today in that capacity. However, I'm not making a decision as part of the DC committee. That is your decision on this application today. But it is right and proper when there are major applications that have a major significance that I'm present, and I'm present today. So you will see me pop up now and again to these committees when there are very large applications. But of course, my responsibilities reach much further throughout the council. But thank you for your concerns. I am sure they've been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you've had the legal advice, Councillor Easterbrook. Are you happy with that? That the applicant is putting the application in?
It was more that I'm new to development control. I don't have many years experience in it. It is about land use, and we are looking at the change of land use for the land use. I don't know whether we've actually looked at the financial part of it. And it was for me sort of the corporate director obviously reassuring us that it was a positive thing, and actually bringing up the financial implication of the 3.5 million. So whenever we're looking at developers or applicants, in my short time, I've never sort of heard anybody looking at whether it actually, the amount of money that somebody had would actually cover it. So it was more from a point of view that, yes, Janine is wearing many hats, but she was certainly talking about the financial part of it and the reassurance there. So yeah, thank you for the answer. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor Eastbrook. Simon? You're on mute.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I was going back to the place of this new development within the community, and the links between this community, especially foot routes between this estate and the surrounding areas. So both to the train station and also to the residential areas across the river. So I wonder whether the officers could just give us a little bit of an idea about what the thought that they put into how we get good connections for walkways and so on between this area and the surrounding communities.
Thank you for the question. Lee, are you going to come in on that? Yeah, Lee Tuck, Highways Officer, is going to come in and answer that now.
Thank you very much, Chair.
For the purpose of the recording, my name is Lee Tuck. I am the Principal Highway Development Control Officer. Thank you for your question, Councillor Griffiths. Yes, I've looked at this application since the beginning in 2013, had some involvement again in 2016. And I've also looked at this site in my previous role as Rights of Way Officer. So I do know the area well, and I know that the linkages around this area are constrained by the river. But what we've had to do with this, due to the issues with the river and the sensitivities around the river and the fact that we can't secure land the other side of the river, a crossing wasn't possible back in 2016. Going back as far as 2010, when I was working with the Cleanby Valley Rivers Trust, we had discussions then. So unfortunately, linkages directly over to the east of this development are very difficult. So what I've attempted to do with this application is look at the linkages to the north that go around by the builders merchants and around the first available road, bridge and footway. And I've asked for a condition that will show improvements to those linkages to be agreed at the reserve matter stage. And that will hopefully encourage walking and cycling and linkages to that side of the town, bringing that community together. There are also going to be a number of crossing points over to the opposite side of Oakwood Drive, which will allow future residents to use the stairs if they're able, or go up the road, the link road, the slope there, to get to the shops and bus stops in that location. So as again, we're primarily looking at improving and also creating new footway where there's currently a weighbridge on Oakwood Drive to the north by the builders merchants, and we'd be looking to remove that and replace it with a footway, thus encouraging more usage of that. And again, when the reserve matters comes in, we'll be looking at a robust active travel route through the site, linking parcels of the site to obviously the employment area, and also hoping to get into the bottom of the Oakwood Drive that the residents there can utilise the facilities in this development, such as the public open space. So we'll be looking at pulling those two together rather than keeping them as separate communities. They will be pulling that together, which I think the residents of the existing residents are welcoming from what I've had conversations with. So all in all, there will be a package. I haven't had anything before me yet because it is in outline, but I've put a condition there, and I'll certainly be robust in asking for what we need in order to link these communities. Hope that answers your question. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much for that full answer.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Hughes, please. Martin Hughes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Perhaps just to give a local perspective, Rodri mentioned about the industrial legacy of this site. It was actually, this site does hold a very special place in the hearts of people of Maesteg. It provided tremendous employment opportunities post-war in the form of companies like Cooper Standard, Revlon, Boodlepack, and it provided a livelihood for many people, and created social networks which are still valued and still very strong now. So I think that's an important aspect of this site. In terms of the future, the town of Maesteg will benefit tremendously from this development. Not only will we see the ridding of an industrial site that's been derelict for so long and almost forgotten about. But it will transform into, providing these much needed 201 houses. The green areas, again, are a bonus, and also the potential for economic development through the hub and the much improved transport infrastructure that will hopefully come about before too long. So again, from a local perspective, I would certainly urge my colleagues on the Development Control Committee to give this application your full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. I can't see anybody. Councillor Collins, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to concur with Councillor Martin Hughes' statement. I mean, based on memory and certainly post-industrial revolution, I mean, the urban development of our valleys, like the Llanelli Valley, was practical. It was, in those days, people could see the wider aspect of the valley, which would have been town centre down to and just beyond the Iweni Road site. And, as we could see from the elevated vantage points we took yesterday as a committee, I mean, it is a large site. It's 20 acres plus. In the position it's in, with the potential it's got, particularly in terms of the housing it'll afford, not just my state, but the county borough. Yeah. So yes, thank you for that, Chair. I just felt I wanted to add that comment to what's been said today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. I can't see any. Oh, Councillor Mark John.
Thank you, Chair. Only a quick one before we move on. I'm just getting a little bit of confusion now as to what we're actually going to be voting on today. Are we going to be voting on the whole area as one site, or if Janine and legal were correct, then the BCBC portion is not being considered today? Just a question, Chair. Thank you.
Johnston's going to come back to you on that now.
Yeah, just for that clarification, the consideration today will be for the whole of the site. Yeah, it's the whole of the site. It's all of the red-lined area on the plan that's in the report pack. Just for members to be aware that it's not unusual for local authorities to submit applications to itself. In this case, as Gillian has indicated, the council isn't technically the applicant, but it has a landowning interest. But it isn't unusual for authorities to determine their own planning applications. The law allows for it, and the regulation for what we call a Reg 4 application, I can't remember the name of the legislation now, it goes back to 1992, it's a long time ago. But yeah, otherwise things wouldn't get developed. We do occasionally submit applications to ourselves. The difficulties, as Gillian has indicated, that the difficulty is in entering into a legal agreement with ourselves, because we technically can't do that. There's a planning authority and the council are, although they're separate entities, they are actually the same body. So what Gillian has indicated is that there's going to have to be other considerations involved with how we pursue the legal agreement. So what you will be voting on or approving or whatever today will be for the development as indicated in the report, and that will be subject to the signing of the legal agreement, and that will follow afterwards. And that, again, that's not uncommon for planning applications that we approve subject to the Section 106 agreement, and that follows at a later time. I hope that's clarified the position. Happy if you wanted to come in on any of those points, Chair or Gillian.
Director, could you just hang on a second, because Gillian wanted to make a legal point. Yeah. Gillian?
Yes, Chair, thank you. It's just a straightforward, simple legal point, Councillor John, which is that an applicant for planning permission can apply to develop any land, but even if they don't own it, but of course they can't implement it until they acquire control or an interest in that land.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Janine?
Yes, just a very quick interjection from me then. The points that we discussed about finance today and the grant from CCR were in direct response to a question from Councillor Clark. It was background to this application. It's nothing to do with the application that's in front of you today in terms of a material consideration. How it's funded is something else. What you have to decide on today, committee, is this the right land use that's in front of you today? That was just additional information.
Thank you, Director. Simon? You're on mute.
I'm trying to get my mute button off today. So I just wanted to add a thanks actually to the officers. I mean, this has been a long time in coming. It's a critical site in the middle of one of our communities. It's an important brownfield site that needs redevelopment, but it's got substantial problems because of its history with light and medium industry. But what I can see from the report is that the officers have been over more than 10 years, I think, really focus on trying to develop this site and make it better for the community. So I do want to put on record my thanks to the officers for their perseverance on this particular one, and looking for extra funding to remediate the site, and then also making the site viable for the developers. So I think this is a good regeneration site for us, and it is actually because of the perseverance and high quality work the officers have already done over more than 10 years. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Simon, for them kind comments to the officers. I can't see anybody else asking a question, so I'm going to go now to page 49. The recommendation, the applicant entered into a 106 legal agreement 2, and then it goes to different points. Can somebody formally move and second, please?
I move.
I formally move.
Second.
Thank you. Are we all in favour?
Aye. Yes.
Yeah?
Aye.
Anybody against? No? Okay, thank you very much for that. That's carried then, unanimously. Right. I've just been told, can you put your cameras on remotely when you speak, please? Make sure your cameras are on all the time, because some cameras are not on apparently, just come from upstairs. So can you just make sure your cameras are on, please? Right, we go to appeals now. Next thing on the agenda, and as I do, I'm not going to ask officers now to come through with appeals. Has anybody got any questions on the appeals?
Before that.
Oh, sorry. What? Oh, sorry. Yes. What was it?
RTPI.
The RTPI. Sorry. Yes. Well, so, after appeals on mine.
Oh. Oh, my apologies. It is appeals next. Sorry.
Yes.
I thought it was in the main part. My apologies, Chair.
That's okay. Right. Yeah, just checking I'm on board. Yeah, okay. Right, I thought I wasn't reading it right.
Okay,
Right, has anybody got any questions on appeals? So if they've got any concerns, please put your hands up and you can ask the questions. If you haven't, we'll move on, because they're quite straightforward. There is one there, it's a bit split, but you should have read that. Yeah? Okay, I can't see anybody asking any questions. We'll move on then. Number 10, the RTPI. Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Now that I've got my order sorted out, and my handwritten notes are obviously not legible. Okay, thank you, members. I don't intend to spend too much time on this particular item, but quite happy to take any questions afterwards. But I thought it was prudent to bring to members' attention that the recent research project that was undertaken by the Royal Town Planning Institute. Now, for members' benefit, if you're not aware, the Royal Town Planning Institute, or the RTPI, is the governing professional body for town planners, and it's been around for quite some time. It's over 100 years old, and it represents the planning profession, and from time to time it also carries out its own research into planning matters. And over the last couple of years, the focus of the RTPI's research as a lot of it has been on resourcing of planning teams and resourcing of the profession itself. So last year we had the RTPI Cymru, which is the Wales branch of the Royal Town Planning Institute, has published a research paper which looks at the effectiveness of the planning system in Wales, and what is experienced in terms of lack of resources and expertise, so to deliver the far-reaching placemaking and planning agenda that's been set by Welsh Government. Now, the research paper did identify that we as planners are doing to make more effective and efficient use of resources, and also to look at the potential to collaborate and change within the parameters of the existing resource issues. Some members may remember that I took a very similar themed report a little while ago. Now, that was the RTPI research paper, The Big Conversation. And I've put links to this document in that within the report, and also links to the wider RTPI research on the state of the profession, which was also undertaken last year. So that's a national picture. Yeah, it was February 2023. We brought the last report. So this research paper sort of follows on from that paper. That previous paper was mainly about the issues being experienced by planners themselves. This current paper is now looking at the what can be done, really, how we can change that, how we can turn that around. So I'm not going into too much detail on it, but I'll draw you to the sort of critical points in the paragraph 3, which is on in the report.
Page 73.
73. Thank you, Chair. It's not on the digital version. These are things that shouldn't be a surprise to members. There's been a significant decline in resources in the planning system, and this is impacting the capacity of the planning systems, lack of capacity in local planning authorities due to difficulties recruiting and retaining planning staff, increasing demands on the planning system, increasing stakeholder expectations, so that's the members of the public and other partners. The impression is that the planning system has now been trying to do more with less. The skills deficit in some important areas of planning, need to improve some local planning performance data and other workload information to perhaps better focus resources. So the key areas then are identified for developing good practice is ensuring quality applications and decisions. So you may have heard me talk about in committees that the focus is usually what I'm trying to promote is focus on quality rather than speed of decision making. Although obviously we don't want to be take too long to make planning decisions because of the nature of the development industry, but it's the quality that's quite significant. Now, part of that is to help landowners and developers bring forward suitable sites for inclusion in the LDP, and that's something that we have done over the course of the replacement LDP, and we need to provide that critical support to applicants as well, and encourage the provision of quality information. We do that through our pre-application advice service. Expertise, building expertise and capacity, looking at specialist expertise, how we can share resources to achieve that. There's communication information, making it easier for users of the planning service to find key information, managing planning inquiries in a more efficient way, and making planning data more accessible to the public. Support systems, workload management. This could be using IT systems that make that possible. And strategy and prioritization, where to focus, where our resources are critically under pressure, and where we want to put those resources and we want to direct them. So in regards to Bridgend, now we're not immune to this, and we've experienced considerable reduction in our resources over the last 10 years, and this is something we've been working with for some considerable time. And during that time, we have been improving our efficiency. We have been looking at alternative ways of working, and we have been looking at how we can sort of collaborate to make better use of our resources. Now, we've introduced a new ICT system, which had a better public-facing facility, and with any IT system, it takes a while to fully develop, but we're at the point now where access for the public is a lot better than it was 10 years ago. And that means that people don't have to ring us or ring our officers to make inquiries, because that information is freely available online. A lot of planning history is now available online. So we've spent that time over the last 10 years sort of developing these systems to make it easier for members of the public and members and other parties to sort of access information. We introduced a couple of years ago, a new bespoke paid-for pre-application advice service. Now, Bridgend was the first authority in Wales to introduce paid-for pre-application advice. That was very, very new back in 2011. And not actually before that, long before that, that came in. But we developed it again in 2011 and then later on in 2016, and we've evolved that now to provide what is probably one of the best pre-application advice services in Wales. We tailor the response to suit the development. We provide a project team approach to large-scale developments, and we have been applauded for our system. And generally, when people speak of Bridgend's pre-application advice service, it's generally very, very positive. We're also looking at bringing forward planning performance agreements, and I did take a report to committee a little while ago on PPAs, and Cabinet has approved that as a principle. And that's something we will be expanding on in the future. Now, for members' benefit, planning performance agreements are agreements between the planning authority and the developer about how a development can come forward and how it can be resourced. And it may involve the developer making additional financial contributions to pay for some of that service. So, for example, if we have a large-scale development that's taking an officer, would be a full-time job for an officer, taking time out of normal planning work, then we could seek to backfill that post on a temporary basis using any monies we get from planning performance agreement. And that again is not something that's unique to Bridgend. That is something that's been done all over the country, all over the UK. Now we've still had quite a few challenges, and we still got a few challenges ahead in 2024. We are at the end of our replacement local development plan process, and this will see a number of large-scale strategic housing sites coming forward, and these are quite large developments of many hundreds of houses coming forward. It's going to be a challenge for us to keep on top of that and to secure that key inward investment into the county borough. And we've got a very small planning team. And also we also have a very small highway team as well to support the planning team. And similarly, other disciplines within the authorities, things like ecology, design, urban design, landscaping, engineering, flood issues. Again, we're relying very much on small teams, small inputs. And this comes back to the findings in this report, is that it's not just planning, it's also the sort of allied professions that we rely on. Well, we're trying to meet those challenges head on. We're trying to plan, we're trying to be strategic, we know what's coming, and we're trying to plan for it. But there's going to be a lot of challenge ahead for us with our current level of resourcing. Yes, it's not going to be easy, but we're not alone in that. But Bridgend was hit very early on with resource cuts, and at one time we were the smallest planning team in Wales. but dealing with some of the biggest proposals. We were smaller than the Brecon Beacons National Park at one time, and that's where we were a couple of years ago. Now we have, with the help of our director, who's sitting here today, we have managed to build up some of that resource. We have been able to recruit a few more officers, particularly in the enforcement side, Chair, which I think we were very lucky. We had one enforcement officer for many years, the Lone Ranger, as she was referred to. But we've now doubled that to 2, and we've also looked at improving resources within other allied sectors such as transportation, and we are still trying to do that at the moment, but we are fully aware of the financial position of the authority, and that's going to be a challenge for us as well going forward. Yeah. So I've rambled on enough. I'm quite happy to take any sort of observations, Chair, or questions on this.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got any questions on that substantial overview of the Directorate and the things that we're doing? I think everybody understands exactly what's going on within the Directorate and the Council itself. So, with no questions, thank you very much. Thank you, Jonathan, for that comprehensive report. We'll now go on to the training log. As you can see, conservation area is the next one. And then PEDU, Rights of Way, Tree Policy, Wellbeing and Future Generations Act. So as we go through them, we will replenish them as we go through with the committee. If anything they want to put on there, please tell us and we can put it on there for discussion and a debate. That's that. I haven't got any urgent items given to me. Can I thank everybody for attending today? And please, can you stay on the line, because we've got training straight after this. We're going to have a 10-minute quick break. We'll come back in 10 minutes at 15:15, and then we'll do a little bit of training, and then we can all go home. Okay? Thank you very much.